for United Nations, there, the peacekeeping mission down there. And then I was in Bosnia for 1 year working with the peacekeeping mission and the NATO mission after the Dayton agreement that Bill Clinton made. After that I left the military because of the Cold War ended. So Sweden shut down the military forces. So we went from 800,000 soldiers down to 50,000 soldiers. So I thought I need to do something else. So I joined the police force instead. So for more than 20 years I was part of the police force in Sweden, and I had the opportunity to set up a new unit in Sweden called the Swedish Counter-Terrorist Unit. Actually, Sweden was the latest Western European country who did that. I mean, the Germans did it 1974 or something, I think, and also Norway and Denmark, other Nordic countries, they did it quite early as well, but Sweden was very late. So I was working there as a team leader and as an operational commander. So for many years I was traveling around in the world with the Swedish Prime Minister and the Minister for Foreign Affairs when they were visiting high-risk areas, for example, Pakistan or Afghanistan or Iraq as well. So I did that until 10 years ago. Then we realized, me and a couple of colleagues, that a lot of those experience that we have had working in this environment was very useful even for Swedish private companies and other branches in Sweden. So 10 years ago we started the company and starting to develop companies when it comes to leadership and developing effective working teams and different types of stress strategies in different companies. So for the last 2 years, actually, I've been working with the Swedish healthcare system, supporting doctors and nurses who have been working with the COVID pandemic in Sweden. And we're working with a lot of private companies and different branches in Sweden as well. The reason why we understood that we need to change the leadership in Sweden is because the scientists call it the meta crisis. We are in the middle of a huge difference, especially in Europe and United States, but I think in the whole world actually. Because a lot of problems, we have a lot of healthcare problems, we have the pandemic, the environment. A lot of people, especially in Sweden and for example in the United States, have a lot of mental problem. Sweden, we have 10 million people living in Sweden. 1 million are eating antidepressive pills because they don't feel good. So that's a huge problem in Sweden. The people are not happy. And as you can see, we haven't got this man anymore, but we have this man now instead, who is a huge problem for Sweden. So we think we are going back to some sort of Cold War situation again. And we realize this will affect the leadership in Sweden very, very much. So we understood that the behavior and act that we have seen we need to change that a lot. So how can we change the leadership and the way we behave to be prepared for the future? Because what we understood that we need in Swedish company or in Swedish working group is much more what we call a creativity. We need to get out much more of each employees. We need to make it possible for them to be really responsible for what they are doing. And we need them to have the courage to do things that they not feel safe to do. And we need to see much more of accountability. So when we were working in the police force, we understood that there are two types of performance. Of course, we have what we call the task performance, and that is how I perform in my duty, how good I am at my work. But another thing that was really important for us, and we have seen it in a lot of companies as well, how good am I performing in relationship to my colleagues? Because in Sweden, I don't know how it is here, but we have a lot of problems in a lot of companies that people, they are arguing, they are fighting, they're talking bad at each other, and they're not dare to speak the truth to each other. So we need to develop what we call much more relationship performance and the courage to really speak up. Because if they not are good here, it's very difficult to perform in a good way, even when you're in your task performance. So what we have trying to create for at least 10 years now is a huge change from the traditional way of leading, where there is a commander leading and the rest are listening to the commander and just following orders. That can be very good, but if you want to have employees that have high levels of creativity, courage, and trying to do some new things, you need to make it possible for them to take responsibility for themselves, to lead themselves actually. Because it's very difficult for the leader to have all the information that is needed at all time, especially if you have to make fast changes all the time. Then you must let the employees have the ability to take much more responsible. But that's a huge problem, of course, because they need a lot of things. They need much more education. They need much more authority and being able to take responsibility for what they are doing. We call this extreme ownership, and that means they need to own their own situation. They need to take responsibility, because if we don't give them responsibility, they can always point at the leader and say, I don't know, you have to ask my boss. But here, you need to be responsible for everything that you are doing. So it's a very tough situation for the employees, but we have seen that it makes a huge difference. And for that, we lead in 4 perspectives. And first of all, you need to be very aware of yourself, your own values, what is important for you. You really need to start knowing yourself. And then you need to get a very good level of communication with other people, because those people must be very good communicate together with each other. In this, normally you always communicate with the leader and the leader communicate with others. But here, they need to have a very good skill in communication by themselves. The third perspective on leadership is, we call it to be led. And that means you must understand on this level, what is the task? What is my role? What do my commander expect from me? And to really lead here, you must accept everything. You can't sit here and don't say anything. You really need to accept the mission, the role, the goals. Otherwise, you're going to fail. So you really need to understand the situation that you are in. And the fourth thing is to lead others. Because here, there is one leader, but here, everybody are leaders. Because they are leading each other. They're helping each other to perform better. It's not only the commander's responsibility to lead. Everybody leads. Everybody helping each other to perform better. And we call that the 4 perspective on leadership. To make that happen, we have a model called the EPO model. It's a very common model in Western Europe, where we see the input, the process, and the output. And the output is actually the real performance we see in task and relationships. Good things and bad things. But those behavior counts on, of course, the input. Because it matters what input you have and what output you get. And the inputs here are, for example, which employees do we recruit? They must be on a very high level. We need to educate them very, very well, because we want them to take a lot of responsibilities. So they must be well educated, and they really must understand the task. Of course, the leadership is very important here, and we are doing very much right now to change the leadership in, for example, the healthcare system, because in Sweden we have had a system who has been based on control. I read a report a couple of months ago that a doctor in Sweden, he uses around 50% of the working time every week making reports about what he is doing, because his commander wants to know what they're doing instead of helping patients, because they haven't got time to help the patient, because they need to make reports to the commanders. So we're trying to change that right now, because we want to have a leadership based on trust. Because if the commander trusts the employees here, they don't have to report to him all the time, because the leader here trusts them. But it's difficult, but it's possible. Another thing that we're working with is the organization. We need to develop organization with much less of bureaucracy. In Sweden, we have a huge bureaucracy. A lot of levels, commanding levels. You have to ask to do things, but in the future, we want to have an organization with much less commanding levels, so the employees have the ability to take responsibility to lead themselves much more. And we also have to clarify the mission, so it's very clear for everybody in which direction are we heading, what do we want to accomplish. It's very, very important, but normally people don't know where they go to work. There was a report from the United States that I think, was it 70% of the people in American companies actually don't know how they support the company to succeed in the business. They actually don't know why they go to work. And that's very dangerous. So we have to have a situation where all employees know exactly, why am I at work? What is my responsibility? What are we trying to accomplish here? To do that, we are in the model of what we call the process. And that's about what we think and what we feel and what we do in behave to accomplish the mission. And one very, very important thing there is to have what we call common thoughts. We need to use a lot of time to talk to each other in the company, in the working group, about different type of questions. First of all, we need to talk a lot about the mission. Have we the same thought about the mission? In Swedish companies, if you sit down like this, you always get different answers. Okay, where will the company be in 1 year? In what direction are we going? People have different opinions about that. So that's, of course, a problem, because we need to have a shared mission of what are we doing, and a shared goal. So to go in that direction, what is our first goal? What will we do tomorrow? What will we do next week? What will we do next month to reach that goal, to reach that mission? It must be very clear for everybody in the working group or in the department. We also need to discuss about the roles as well. What is my role? What is your role? What is your role? It must be very, very clear, because if it's not clear, we're going to start arguing. Oh, that is my responsibility. No, it's your responsibility. It must be very clear what is my responsibility, what is your responsibility. If that's clear, we can relax. What strategies are we going to have, of course? Something that is very important is how to behave, and that is how to behave, for example, when we meet customers, but more importantly, how to behave to each other inside the working group. Because in Sweden, we have a lot of problems with discussion, conflicts inside groups, because they behave in a bad way to each other. They're not friendly to each other. They don't treat each other with respect, because they don't talk enough about how to behave. And that, of course, affects the result of the work very, very much. Something else they have to discuss is what we call the performance level, because the commander can have one opinion about what is a good performance, and the employees had another opinion about what is a good performance. So we have to share what is an acceptable performance level. Because if we perform too high, we're going to get sick, because we need to rest, we need to sleep. But we have some employees in Sweden, they're working 60, 70 hours a week, and after 2 or 3 years, they get sick. And then, of course, we have people who, they are at work 40 hours a week, but they don't do anything. So we really need to discuss what is good performance in our working team, in our working place. If we got good feelings when we're discussing this in the group, and when I hear your opinion about those questions, and I got a good feeling, that's what we would like to create. Because if we got bad feelings, if I get angry when I listen to you, or if I get frustrated, irritated, that's not good. But if I got a good feeling when I listen to you, we have created a very good foundation to perform good together. And what we would like to create is what we call collective feelings. That is, actually, it's shared feelings in the working group. And there are 4 shared feelings. First of all, I have a feeling that when we're working together, we can do this. We're going to accomplish this. We're going to reach the goal. We're going to reach the mission with our task. So I feel calm. Yeah, we're going to fix this. Another feeling is that I feel trust. I trust you. I know that you are qualified enough to finish this task. You're qualified enough to be responsible in your role. I don't have to worry about that. I have a good feeling because I trust you. And I also need to feel safe with you. That you're taking care of me, that you're friendly, that if I have problems, I know you're going to help me. It's very, very important. And we have very good relations. So I'm very proud of being part of this team. I'm talking good about us when I meet other people. I want to be part of this. So I'm willing to do very much to continue being a part of this working group. So I'm proud of us. Those collective feelings are very, very, very important. Those animals, I don't know if you recognize them. In Sweden, I use them when I talk to people like you, because they are very effective as symbols for 3 systems you have in your body. In Sweden, we have a very strong system called the performance system. And you have it as well, as, of course. But in Sweden, our culture is built on performance. To be a good Swede, you need to perform. You know about this. I mean, you're not a good person if you don't perform. And that makes a lot of stress in us. Because performance is good, but you need to have contact with this system as well, the rest system. To perform good, you need to rest. You need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to take care of yourself. But a lot of Swedes, they're not good at that. Because they have too much stress in the body. Because the third system are affecting them very much. The symbol of a crocodile is the threat system. The system that is being activated when we are fearing, then we feel fear, anxious, when we are nervous. This is the leader of the subconscious system in our body that activates to save our lives, when the brain trying to save our lives. So you need to have a balance between those systems, because you have all the systems in the body. But in Sweden, those 2 are very active, the performance system and the threat system. So we need to learn Swedes to calm down, actually. As I notice now when I'm working with the traffic police, a lot of people down here have a very good routine. They are praying 5 times a day. And that's excellent to let the body calm down, relaxing for 5 minutes or something, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes, and then they can continue to perform. But Swedes, we have the fika kultur. We take a cup of coffee, but I don't think they relax enough when they're doing it. So nowadays, we really need to find different type of methods to make people relaxing more. I mean, nowadays it's very popular with meditation, yoga, and so on in Sweden, and that's why they calm down the system. But the problem, what we want to create, I know you are familiar with those chemicals, because the leadership that we want to create, the goal is to make it possible for those chemicals in the body to circulate. I mean, we need to have the dopamine to perform, and we also need the serotonin to feel good, to feel accepted, to have a feeling that I'm worthy, I am something. But you also need to have oxytocin, not only at home, also at work. We used to say, you need to have a best friend at work. You need to feel safe at work. So in Sweden, we have a lot of problems because a lot of employees have very, very low levels of those chemicals, but they have a very high level on these chemicals, cortisol, the stress hormone. And stress hormone is very bad if you want to perform good. Because if you have high levels of stress hormone, we have seen that in the healthcare system, a lot of people after a while, they get sick. In the beginning, they perform 60 hours a week, no problem, but after 6 months, after 1 year, they go into the boss and say, I can't do this anymore because I feel so bad. So this is very, very dangerous for us. Okay. Another important thing for good performance is, of course, the motivation. And we need to develop a leadership that enable people to feel motivated. And we can motivate people in different ways. I think we skipped that one. Actually, there are two ways. I need to do this. And that type of leadership is to do it with giving, I can give you money so you perform, or I can push you to perform, or I can threat you to perform. That's not bad, but there is one problem with that. And that is, if I let people perform by giving them money, I need to give them more money all the time. Because after a while, $100 is only $100. To continue to perform, I want to have $120. And after a while, I want like to have $140. And the same if I scream at people, if I yell at people, if I'm angry, okay, you're going to perform because you think I'm scary and you feel uncomfortable. But after a while, I need to scream more, I need to scream louder because you get the resistance to my anger. Do you have small kids? You have had small kids? I got 5 kids, and I used to raise them by forcing them. I was angry all the time, but they get resistance. So after a couple of years, they say, oh, it's only dad. He's only angry. Don't bother about him. The things we want to create is an environment where the employees do it because they want to. I want to work with this. I want to perform, not because my boss say I need to. I do it because I want to. And to create an environment for that, we have 3 psychological needs that we, with our leadership, need to make it possible for the employees to feel. And there is a difference between psychological needs and physical needs. Physical needs, I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to go to the toilet. I mean, we need to do that, all of us. But the physical needs, when you have got the food, you don't need to think about eating for 4 or 5 hours. It's the same when you have been sleeping the whole night. You wake up and you feel good. You don't have to think about sleep until 12 hours. But the psychological need, you need to have the whole time. And the first psychological need we have is that you have to feel competence. As a leader, you need to help me feel competent. You help me to feel that I'm good enough. My friends at the company needs to behave so I feel competent. I need to get, I need to be well educated so I feel competent. Because you have all imagined the feeling when you don't feel competent. You feel uncertain. No good. So you need to have a feeling that I can do this. I'm good enough. It's very, very important. Otherwise, we start feeling bad quite fast. The second is what we call affinity. And that's a feeling that I belong. When I meet my friends at work, they say hello to me, they smile, they show that they like me being there. They invite me. They ask me if I want to go to lunch with them, if I want to take a cup of coffee with them. So here I have a feeling that I belong. I feel safe here. They take care of me. They want me here. It's very, very important. And the fourth one is what we call autonomy. And that is it's more like a feeling, because all the people on earth need to have a feeling that they are in control over their own situation. I mean, as soon as we don't have money enough, we don't feel autonomy. When we have a government that don't take decision that is good for me, I don't feel autonomy. And it's the same in companies. I need to have a feeling that I can take decision by myself about my own life. And what we have seen, it don't have to be that much. Just a feeling of someone is listening to me. If I have an opinion, I have a feeling that my boss, my commander, is listening to me. Because if I have a feeling nobody is listening to me, nobody cares about my thoughts, no good feeling. So if we can create an environment, if we can create a leadership that makes the employees to have those psychological needs in an acceptable level, we have created a very good environment for people to feel right feelings, for performing very, very good. This theoretical model about leadership we implemented in Sweden 20 years ago. It started with the army. Just after the Cold War, they understood we need to develop another type of leadership in the army. And then we implemented this in the police force, and now nearly all the Swedish companies has implemented this theoretical model, and it's called a full-range leadership model. And it's a model made by an American scientist called Bruce Avolio. I don't know if you have heard about it. But actually, to this model, we have another aspect of leadership as well, and that we call the destructive leadership. And there are a lot of Swedish scientists who have been looking into this phenomena called destructive or bad leadership, and they have realized that bad leadership is much worse for the environment, for the employees, than the good leadership is. So we have understood that it's much more important to get rid of destructive and bad leadership than to create good leadership. So if we have leaders that are okay, we don't have to take that much time to make them great. It's better to take the bad leaders up to an acceptable level, because the bad leaders are like poison in the system. So we have been made a lot of research about that. And nowadays we're talking a lot about what you call the black triangle. Have you heard about that? That's really dangerous if you have leaders who are in the black triangle. And the black triangle is about leaders who scale high on, for example, narcissistic behaviors.